Okay, well, welcome to LGBTQ Pride Month at Foothill College for 2020. And this is one of our two opening events this week. I am here very proudly to welcome Sophia Falco, poet Sophia Falco. Let me mention, if you're joining us from elsewhere, this is our wonderful poster here that should be available on our website very soon. And there are Zoom links to all kinds of events. So welcoming Sophia today, I'm about to introduce her, but we have a college hour opening ceremony tomorrow. We're going to be focusing on the role of Black Lives Matter within the queer rights movement. So that's a very timely topic right now, and I'd love to have you there for that. We have a fantastic dining series with some of our local Bay Area drag queens and drag kings, and they're going to give cooking lessons because some of them are also professional chefs by day. And drag queens are queens by night. So that's really fun. We have other mental wellness events like this mental wellness, stretching and awareness and centering and meditation and Zumba event. Parent Scotty Planette will be joining us. So I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of these other events and you can access them on our foothill.edu website. Right now, I'd like to go ahead and introduce poet Sophia Falco, who I'm going to introduce very briefly. First of all, I have to brag that Sophia is a former Foothill student. She's now attending the University of California at Santa Cruz. She began writing poetry while she was at Foothill College and now is a published poet in numerous venues. So as you see on your screen, her poetry has been published in Stigma Fighters, The Mindful World, The Aesthetic Apostle, The Festival Review, Tiny Seed Journal, The Poetry Matters, and forthcoming Raw Art Review, and I think it actually needs to be updated even beyond that. Her new book, The Immortal Sunflower, or her chapbook, The Immortal Sunflower, is being published and is out, and Sophia will be telling you about that. And I would like now to get out of the way, as a matter of fact, and help us to welcome poet and author and former Foothill student and mental health advocate, and a personal, yeah, you are on my list of heroes, Sophia. So one of Scott's personal heroes, former student, Sophia Falco. And I guess we can do sort of like waving our little hands here. Thank you very much. Okay, Sophia, you have it from now on, and I'll just try to hop in as needed, right?
Okay, great. First, before we begin, I wanted to just begin with a moment of silence to acknowledge the challenging times we're living in, some more than others, and that this is a moment of suffering, just to take a moment here before I proceed. Okay, thank you. So I guess I will do my screen share now. Have a little speech prepared, and then we can go into some poems from my book. And I lost the screen thing. Okay. Poetry is what grounds me. And then I'm unmuted, right?
Yes, you are. And we can see your page as well, if that's what you want us to see.
Okay, just double checking. Poetry is what grounds me. I believe in this realm of poetry that I have complete control, which is ever so important for me as an individual affected by bipolar disorder 1 for nearly a decade. I have control over my pen and paper, control over my word choice and direction of my poems, control over this sacred space of creativity, and control over my complex mind that sometimes I feel I have lost power to when in episodes of depression, mania, or a mixed state. When I mean control, I mean that my poetry unites my body with my mind and with my soul, and that my poetry cannot be taken away from me. Poetry allows me for self-expression, different of that in academic writing, which could not as effectively capture my emotions, feelings, and thoughts in the way that poetry does for me. I do feel that sometimes poems come to me and I feel this is a blessing, whereas other times I have to work much harder in the process of writing, editing, rearranging stanzas, and such. So this is also, in a different way, a blessing. Writing poetry frees me from suffering. It allows me to liberate my troubling emotions, experiences, including fear, onto something tangible, just as simple, but at the same time so profound, of words on paper. Ultimately, I believe poetry is to not let those emotions be trapped, which causes further pain as time passes by. When I feel centered and balanced, my appreciation for life is much greater because of the suffering I have had, and this makes life much more beautiful. Even when I'm in an episode, I remind myself that indeed life is still beautiful, such as illustrated by an innocent flower, and this motivates me to continue forth on my journey for mental health. As of today, I identify strongly as a poet, which has given me more confidence in my life, and without poetry, I would certainly not be the person that I am today. I believe poetry has a tremendous power to be a form of activism, especially for mental health advocates like myself. Bipolar disorder, formerly known as manic depression, affects about 5.7 million adult Americans each year, including myself. Poetry is a great way to start the conversation, to start to end the silence surrounding mental illness, and can even foster much needed empathy. I want to stress that treatment is not a sign of weakness, but instead a sign of strength. And I also want to emphasize that it is not someone's fault that they have it. Today, I will be reading selected poems from my poetry chapbook, The Immortal Flower, published in print by Uncollected Press as one of their winners of the Raw Art Review chapbook contest. My book was released in December 2019, and we have hit the milestone of 50 copies sold. All poems inside my semi-autobiographical compilation, many inspired by the challenges living with bipolar disorder presents, were published prior, along with 2 contest finishes. One for my poem Rocket Ship, the 3rd place winner for the college category of the Poetry Matters Project Literary Prize, and for my poem Red Dove, as a runner-up for the William Watling Prize. The cover photograph of my book is my own that I took of a sunflower that I grew, and was published in the Fredericksburg Literary and Art Review. In addition, I will be reading some new poems of mine. All but one have been published so far. My poetry has opened up many doors for me and has taken me much further than I ever could have imagined. In fact, I did not set out to be a poet. However, undoubtedly this was meant to be, and I truly believe this was fate. My journey as a poet began when I started out writing poetry as a senior in high school about 6 years ago. This was because I was assigned a poetry project. I'm ever so grateful for that life-changing opportunity, because otherwise I probably would have not known the poet inside of me. I continued on writing after that. I take my craft seriously, and I take pride in what I do. One of my professors at Foothill College encouraged me to submit my poems to literary journals and magazines to try to get them published, which did come to fruition in a big way. I do want to bring to light that rejection can definitely be a part of the process in regards to getting published. And I know this firsthand. I started out submitting my poetry around 2017, and I've been rejected about 110 times. However, my book, The Immortal Flower, got published relatively quick. After submitting it, it was rejected 3 times. And I'm so honored and grateful that Uncollected Press decided to publish it and select it as a winning chapbook. However, as you can see, I did not let those rejections stop me, although sometimes those were difficult. Most importantly, they did not cause me to lose faith in my poetry, faith in myself, and faith in my mission of fighting the stigma through poetry, because I've continued to hold on to my faith in my poetry journey. For example, my poem Rocket Ship has a special place in my heart because it was given heavy criticism by a professor. He felt the speaker of the poem was too disembodied. However, that was the feeling I wanted to convey. Poetry is a very subjective art form, and people obviously have varying opinions. However, I trusted my poet instinct of knowing it was one of my best poems. Therefore, I did not change it under the pressure of an authority figure to do so. In a sort of validation, not that it had to win 3rd place, it did. A poet's instinct can be ever so powerful, and it's important not to be discouraged by others. I really enjoy writing about outer space themes and using outer space metaphors, especially because I feel like the distance from being on Earth into outer space is so fascinating. In addition, this poem, Rocket Ship, was written retrospectively I've written other poems in this way as well, because the goal was to capture the disembodiment and fear that for me mania presented. Furthermore, for me, art therapy is intriguing in and of itself, and I felt this was a great opportunity to use my creative liberties with that concept, because in real life, I did not paint rocket ships. Instead, I painted a pumpkin with a purple and blue background. I gave it to the nurse and she was so happy to receive it. However, that snapshot in time doesn't encapsulate the distress of my experience of mania, though that is an interesting story nonetheless. I would like to say, to inspire other people living with bipolar disorder, that I will graduate as an undergraduate from the University of California, Santa Cruz this June 13th with the highest honors in the literature department and with the honors of magna cum laude. Despite many times throughout my academic career there, I didn't even think I would graduate in the near future because of the depression that I've faced. My Bachelor's of Arts degree will be in intensive literature with a creative writing concentration in poetry. I wouldn't be in the position that I am today without the love from my family and my closest friends, the support from several very influential professors, for the staff at the Disability Resource Center, both at Foothill College and UCSC, and for the invaluable treatment from my psychiatrist and the work with my psychologist over the years and currently. I'm so grateful. In regards to my title, The Immortal Sunflower and its meaning, sunflowers are my favorite flower. Sunflowers are my favorite flower because they represent joy and resiliency. They are also so vibrant with the yellow color, which is uplifting like the sun's rays that give life. In fact, their flowers follow the sun's pattern. Ultimately, for me, sunflowers represent hope. So when I gave sunflower the adjective immortal, I believe this illustrates that hope does indeed live on. And here we have my book, the front cover with the picture, and then the back cover. And then I thought it'd be cool to share this picture of it in Bookshop Santa Cruz on display. And then this is the epigraph of my book, and I thought it was important to include it here. Love has, at its best, made the inherent sadness of life bearable and its beauty manifest. And this is the author, K. Redfield Jamison, author of An Unquiet Mind. And then we can move on to my poems. Okay. Golden rays. The man on the moon shoots the sun. Some golden rays fizzle out. The darkening sky does not deter me from walking my tiger in circles on the cracked wooden floor in my yellow bricked apartment. Red leash bedazzled with rhinestones. I sigh, creating a void. Orange and black stripes disappear, remaining rhinestones. I pick up each sparkling jewel and arrange them in a star. The battle within. My words are shooting stars with no filter, flying rapidly like demons in the sky. The ego soars, drenched with sorrow. The air is funny today. Molecules bouncing around so rapidly, so many multiplying. I can see them. The wind pushes me and I fall some more, even though I'm lying on the red brick patio under the hot sun. My thoughts are running towards yesterday and sprinting towards the future. My mind is wandering like a lost soul, crowded seconds, minutes, hours, song on repeat. Hours pass and my shirt is soaked with sweat, mixed with hot tears. I know I'm as good as God. Picasso is in my back pocket. No one knows who lives behind these curtains, not even I, how hard I try. Don't want to be forgotten. Stigma and the spaceship. Twisted with ignorance, the man on the dusty street shouts, "You're bipolar." Offended, I desperately want to respond, but now my tongue is coated with despair and I'm unable to speak, as if I ate Sour Patch Kids that were drowned in hate first, and I spit this taste out on, well, I wish on him, yet still my soul shrinks and is scorched by his attack, weapon of choice, his shout, "You're bipolar." So his words ring in my mind as if a metal gong was hit 1,000 times, with the force so strong that it shattered the goldness into 1,000,000 pieces. Society sun tanning its stigmas. Bipolar disorder does not define me, and that is why I'm defiant to those 3 words, as if they are in fact larger than the moon. Sometimes I wish I'm on a spaceship to escape that very twisted attitude and watch over Earth the way a monk watches over dewdrops on a green piece of grass. My therapist pleads me to imagine a placid lake. Imagine a placid lake, my therapist pleads me. She needs me to calm down because mania has taken over my mind. I just cannot. Failure. The ideology behind it feels like it's incomprehensible as fish spewing fire. Terrified, I see a raging, threatening waterfall bursting with psychedelic colors and radioactive waste, killing all living organisms in the plunge pool, and see that the man from the dusty street, he continues to shout at me, "You're bipolar," all while sitting on her purple couch. Red dove. The eyes of a red dove quiver. The sun washes out the color of its feathers from red to pink, like the melting pink ice cream with clear sprinkles it is eating on the burning black pavement. Sugar crystals sparkle. I witness the pink dove levitate and float upwards like a pink balloon into the blue sky. Pop. The man shot it. Yellow blinds me into oblivion. The sunflower stands like a skyscraper. Roots like a spiderweb on steroids, its seeds the size of pinpricks. Yellow blinds me into oblivion. Roots like a spiderweb on steroids, my feet get tangled in the silky strands. Yellow blinds me into oblivion. I pass out. My feet get tangled in the silky strands. I witness the grandiosity of nature. I pass out. Nature wins, like it should. I witness the grandiosity of nature. Its seeds the size of pinpricks. I pass out. The sunflower stands like a skyscraper. Hopes of freedoming from a psychiatric hospital. For 14 traumatic days post-check, I know we've only lived together for a short amount of time, bipolar disorder. I've seen you in the movies, Silver Linings Playbook, bunch of Hollywood propaganda, pushing agendas to romanticize you. Not everyone gets restraining orders post-check. I remember the ambulance ride, told the driver to turn up the music, post-check. Mania, you brought me up, post-check. Countless medications to try and bring me down, post-check. An injection tube, post-check. Hopes of freedoming and to touch the blue sky because it felt like rainbows were catching on fire. Rocket ship. I condensed the power of the ocean into one single droplet of water. It was my hot tear that warped time during my 14-day stay in the psychiatric hospital. My body, no longer felt like mine. Oh, mania. My nurse told me to paint every day. Art therapy, she said, but I could only paint countless red rocket ships that I longed to escape on, to connect my body to my mind that was somewhere lost in space and threatened by a black hole. I could feel she was disappointed in me. I taped up each identical painting to my wall just to realize that part of me was still on Earth. Mania strikes noon. You'd visit me when mania strikes noon, stuck in a tiny hospital room. The world was mine, but I didn't make it in time. And seconds, minutes, hours collapsed on my head, so I hid under the white sheets on my bed. A prison, a prison, a prison. Depression talks back, don't you know? Whereas reality crumbled at my fingertips like a stale sugar cookie. Depression talks back to me, don't you know? And you love me always, just the same. A letter from my dear friend. I know mania strikes noon. I can't stop worrying about you. You stuck in a tiny hospital room, for it does not say anything about who you are as a. Ever since the day I met you, you're you. Not a stale sugar cookie disintegrating by madness. Please, I'll talk back to depression for you. I truly don't care for it, depression. You for who you are, 14 days, then you will be granted free. Don't you understand? I love you. Bipolar disorder does not define you, and I love you. Definitions and diseases don't please me. I know you two lived together for a short amount of time, but the intensity built and built like my ever-increasing love for you. You're you. Caught in the spider web. A leaf dangles upside down like a trapeze artist floating to and fro. A leaf spins quickly and tightly like a ballerina. A leaf twirls like an umbrella whose top is inside out. Her name is Astrid. Sunshine. The yellow curtains in the studio, the entryway to clear our minds. We practice yoga in the hidden space, leave through the same curtains present. Time fades away like a raindrop drying on the pavement. Refreshed with tranquility and at ease, I sit on the humble wooden bench, ready to put on my worn running shoes, where my teacher kindly joins me. There we meet a curious traveling woman, a fellow yogi seeking knowledge. She introduces herself, Astrid, her spirit for life contagious. Our conversation travels the globe, from dancers to poets to creativity. We navigate life's ups and downs without a compass, in the quest for the meanings of life. Explore diverse philosophies, the synergy of our spirits strong. Yet the answer lies in another dimension. Mostly I listen, their words dance gracefully off the tips of their tongues into my ears, ends up somewhere that is here. Heartfelt, the three of us hold hands, warmth spreads like the sun's rays throughout our bodies, energizes us with a glimmer of hope. Our truths transport, hands clasped with positivity, cementing the moment. Astrid, with her eyes full of wonder, exclaims, "The air I breathe out, you breathe in. Collectively as humans, we're connected as one. The breath unites us all, but this is hard to see, just like the Milky Way galaxy, because we're in the middle of it. Unity is what we're seeking. In this moment, the universe delivers. An awesome feeling washes over us, as if the Orion Nebula, its stunning beauty against the backdrop of darkness thousands of light years away, showers us with purple raindrops, cleanses our souls. Like curious kids, we catch the drops on our tongues and taste a little magic. As quickly as she came, like the rising and setting sun, Astrid has to leave. Her name is summoned from a small island halfway across the globe. True to her spirit, she smiles as she courageously laces up her blue-patched boots. We know our paths will not cross again, so I gently catch this moment in the palm of my hand like a floating dandelion seed in the sky. I close my hand with purpose. It transforms into a piece of my patchwork quilt full of wondrous moments woven together by the light to wrap around me, for comfort, for joy, to inspire. Just as she leaves the yoga studio with poise, opens the door, turns the corner, the wind whispers in my ear, Astrid. Ode to a Sunflower. In outer space, a strong sunflower floats in orbit, and a lovely astronaut sprinkles joy on this sunflower. These sunflower seeds light up in a yellow spiral, one by one, rapidly. Beams of light radiate out from each seed, and the petals pulsate with power. Flashes of gold in the realm of dark matter. These beams of light reach the earth, coated in a blanket of black, cutting through the darkness, zigzagging like lightning. Oh, how the sunflower shakes its head like a lion shakes its mane, and showers yellow pollen that floats, drifts, and coats the darkness ever so gracefully with gold, like a rain that reaches earth, a sunflower bringing joy into this dark world. And that concludes the reading from my chapbook. And this is me and my 16-foot tall sunflower. Here I am, and then this is way at the top. So that was one of my proudest accomplishments also in my life. Anyways, I thought we'd take a pause to see a few sunflower photographs and then just wrap up with some new poems and like a question and answer section. So these are some, I love photography also. And so anyways, I have like 5 or so pictures. I thought this was really pretty with the spider web and then the really bright yellow in contrast with the maroonish color petals. And then we have a close-up of a sunflower. I think it's called like teddy bear sunflower or some funny name, but I really like the spiral going on in the center of it. And then here's a sunflower standing tall against the blue sky. I like to think of it as standing tall and proud. And then we have a close-up of some seeds that have been, I think, near the end of the sunflower's life, been kind of like dried out. And that was interesting. And then this is looking from a different perspective under the sunflower, really giant sunflower, and just to show how grand they can be. And sometimes we overlook the back of them, and that's kind of interesting as well. And then I just have a few more new poems to share that have been doing well. Snowflakes. I wish for my thoughts to be as wonderful as snowflakes. I hope to witness them from behind the window, free falling towards the ground in the crisp breeze. I long to catch one on my fingertip. longing to time travel. I wish I could hopscotch across the upcoming months without stepping on the white lines, but I wouldn't prevail. With each jump, my tears would blur up the chalk. Imagining 200 tiny astronauts. I imagine a dried dandelion flower as the new frontier. The core is a miniature space station, and each seed is a lovely astronaut where the white fluff are their spacesuits. They are tethered down, whereas the wind comes as a divine intervention, and so these tiny astronauts disperse in every direction. They have arrived at their destination. This destination is the freedom to soar in this present moment. The realm of blue. I find little credence among my defeatist thoughts, and they are now fleeting, like the salt being lifted off the ocean in the crisp breeze, lost in the realm of blue sky. Farewell. When we parted, all the water evaporated from the earth's ocean, so only endless mountains of salt remained, as heavy as the moon, as heavy as my heart. On a pilgrimage in your honor to discover the tallest mountain, I traversed through treacherous terrain, while the sheer sun against the white hurt my eyes, and with every heavy footstep, my black boots crunched the salt, where the sound ricocheted from mountaintop to mountaintop. I prevailed by reaching the sparkling summit, then lay flat on my back and made an angel, sensing her spirit rising, while witnessing the pinnacle of the sunset, its pink rays like roses without thorns. Oh, how I wish I could have bottled up that for you. For the sake of freedom, I shouted, let it rain, well equipped with my lifeboat made out of driftwood. The rain did come, dissolving the mountains, and I saw your reflection in a singular drop. And then lastly, envisioning a clay dove that takes flight. I was given a miniature clay dove to be my guardian the day living with bipolar disorder became my reality. I placed her on my bedroom windowsill as a reminder that there can still be peace despite my struggles that ebbed and flowed like waves crashing on a shoreline. She rested in the same spot for a decade, though every morning I'd check on her because I longed for her to take flight. I would dust her off with a tiny scrap of a black and white dish towel. She became more than my guardian. In fact, she manifested my hopes and dreams. I too wanted to soar. Her motionless presence filled up my bedroom, though this fine morning she was no longer there. It was as if she came to life and snuck out my cracked window without a sound during that hot summer evening and took flight under the bright stars. At first, I was heartbroken at this loss, yet I became conscious of my inner strength and that what is constant is change. When she took flight, I realized my hopes and my dreams have soared too alongside her, and as of today, have come true. Thank you.
Sophia, thank you so much for sharing these pieces of you. We can see you reflected in every drop of your poetry and soar with your words. It's really moving to me. Since I've known you now a couple of years, right? So it's, I'll say to my students in the room, Sophia has really worked hard on her craft, and her voice just gets stronger. It's really wonderful to see you across the years, Sophia. Part of the pleasure of knowing you and seeing you. As you know, and I think as you were about to say, what we'll do now is we've got some more minutes for questions and answers. I think by now most of us are familiar with how Zoom works. It's kind of two ways to do this. I do have a couple co-hosts that are helping out. So if you'd like to ask a question, one way to do it is if you're feeling shy, you can type your question into the chat box. If you'll start with 2 question marks right at the front, not at the back, but at the front so that so co-hosts can see them, we'll read the question for you. I think I'd prefer if you feel bold enough, you can raise your hand, we can call on you. We'd be happy to unmute you and have some questions as well. Of course, I'm hoping I have quite a few students of my own in the room, and I see students from other classes and some other professors are here with us as well, which is fantastic. So, so we'll open the floor to questions and see who would like to go first. And of course, I'm full of questions, so I have to warn you that if you don't come forward with questions, I can take up all of the time. Go. And I see one from Jamie already, so maybe I'll go with that first. And Saba, I see you on the list too, so I'll see if I can get us started. So Jamie asks, when you first started publishing poetry in the Bay Area, which organizations helped you grow in workshops and publishing?
So in regards to publishing, I guess one of the first things I thought to do was look for publications that matched my themes of my work. And I took it from there and started submitting like that and got some successes there. And there's also this other site called Submittable, which presents opportunities for poets to submit their work. But like I said in my speech, a professor encouraged me to submit my poems. I don't think that really crossed my mind prior to her encouraging me. And like I said, it took a while for things to start getting accepted and rejections for individual submissions and whatnot, but then it really started picking up recently. Yeah.
I have a few other questions if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, did you officially start like writing your senior year, or were you writing before that and you just were like by senior year, you're like, wow, I want to start sharing it?
I started writing out middle college. I was assigned a poetry project my senior year. I didn't really do much writing prior to that, maybe 1 or 2 poems way back when, but yeah, so I really started to take it seriously senior year. I was just writing for fun, and I didn't take a creative writing class until I transferred to UCSC, like an official class. So that also was fun to be in a structured environment to just work on my craft.
That's awesome. Do you find that there's like a lot more support within the courses you've taken and the professors you've had in your writing more than you would say like independent organizations, and they've more been like a stable place to publish your work rather than help you improvise and write out different drafts?
To clarify, like the organizations that I submitted my work to, like it's either a yes or no. They accept it or not. So it's not like they really helped me out in terms of my writing practices. It's kind of on my own terms. But I did benefit a lot from my professors at UCSC, different techniques. Really interesting the prompts they gave me just to spark creativity, but I felt like I kind of went on my own path, yeah, in regards to that stuff.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Saba has a question.
Hi, I had a question about the first poem you wrote. Actually, it's not a question about the first poem that you showed us. You mentioned something about your walls being made out of yellow brick, and that reminded me of a short story called The Yellow Wallpaper. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but basically it's a short story that tackles mental health in women. And I wanted to ask you how you feel about the legacy of writing about mental health in literature, because it's a topic that's tackled a lot in literature. I want to know if you feel like writers are doing a good job, or do you think that we can do something else that maybe, I don't know, could be more helpful?
I think I heard of the story about the Yellow Wallpaper, but I've never read it. So that's interesting. I would want to look into that. I was thinking like, okay, this is kind of funny, but you know, the Wizard of Oz, they have like the yellow brick road and then the red road or stuff like that. So I did at one point, yeah, say yellow bricked wall and then the red brick patio. So I just thought that was kind of interesting to highlight that. And then in regards to the poetry world and mental health and stuff like that, for me in the beginning, it was very vulnerable to submit my work and scary because there's a lot of stigma and different things out there. So I felt like when I made it like more so a mission to fight the stigma and whatnot, I felt more comfortable with sharing my ideas and my work. In regards to other poets, haven't looked into it too deeply. I want to, but some of my favorite poets are Kevith Akbar. He's so talented. He wrote Calling a Wolf, and then the Poet Laureate of the U.S., Joy Harjo, and I like Brenda Hillman and Juliana Spar. They write about diverse topics. Yeah.
Is it okay if I ask a follow-up question?
Go ahead, Saba.
Yeah, so what was it about the Wizard of Oz that inspired you? Because you write a lot about, exactly like you said, rainbows and the yellow brick road. So is there something specific about the Wizard of Oz that was inspiring to you?
I don't think anything too profound, but it was one of my favorite movies when I was younger. And it was, and
That's
then,
a valid answer. Yeah, that's all good.
yeah. And then in my backyard, actually, when I lived in the Bay Area, the patio was red bricked in real life. So that also has a factor into my writing about it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ria has a question. Ria, are you there? Okay.
I see a question from May. May says, do you write about other stigmas that impact your life? If not, are you going to? Or the rainbow? I have my rainbow for you.
I don't know. This is the main focal point, maybe in the future. But in my personal life, I have faced stigma surrounding bipolar disorder and people saying things, you know, they really shouldn't, which is hurtful and whatnot. So I thought writing poetry is a great way to try to rise above that and foster empathy and try to give people a glimpse into what it's like to live with it, because it can be invisible at times and hard to understand because it can be invisible. So yeah.
I see that Ria asked, what inspired you to write poems like the one that you shared? I think that's like kind of more general way of asking where those poems come from. Poets always get asked this, Sophia. So,
the question, can you clarify, where do they come from?
What inspired you to write poems like the one that you shared? And this is from Ria, who asked this question.
Oh, okay. In a specific poem or just in general?
It's typed in the chat box, so that's what's there. What inspired you to write poems like the
Oh, okay.
You shared? And maybe Ria clarify.
That's okay. Well, like I said, first, well, I write for my own self-expression. And and to just kind of get those experiences out of my mind retrospectively, to try to process. So it's not like I was specifically writing for an audience in mind. I was just kind of exploring my life experiences. And that happened to be a big focal point in what came out of my writing. I do write about nature and other things, but that is just kind of morphed that way. Yeah.
I'm just checking to see if there are other questions.
I think M. Falco is raising his hand.
So many questions.
Yeah, you can just go ahead and
Oh,
unmute.
good. All right. Thank you. We have to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I haven't asked you this question before. In the poem in which the man shouts, "You are bipolar," was that kind of a point to make about the difference of you are versus you have?
Right. Yeah. The language surrounding it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Put someone in a box if you say you are. So that's why I'm very careful to say I'm living with it or I'm affected by it. So I think word choice surrounding that is really important.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sophia, I'll even ask you a question. I was wondering, as a follow-up to that, whether that was a kind of experience for you, someone actually shouting, or kind of like the world shouts at you in a general way, or both, how that worked out. It's just such a powerful poem. And it also shows how poetry gives you this courage to push back, to fight back, to stand up, right? Like that, it is on my list of favorites because it's so explicit in terms of the world shouting this dreck at you and you finding the strength not to just get beaten down, because people get beaten down.
Yeah, so I have not had someone shout at me from the street or whatever, but I've had people say it's not real to my face. So, that caused a lot of issues, and someone just casually talking about it in a very negative light. So the man just kind of signifies society. Take on it. Not everyone has that take, but like I said, I've witnessed and experienced the stigma in my own life, and that was one way to write about it.
Wow, that's wonderful. And let me ask one more question just for myself here. We'll be out of time in terms of students. Some students will need to leave, so we're getting to the end of time, so to speak. For those of you that have to go, if you're required to be here and you have other classes or other obligations, then that's fine. Maybe Sophia will linger for those of us that would like to linger longer. I don't know. I mean, it's a hard question. I'm so impressed with the way that poetry gives you that power again to sort of contain chaos, or that the words give you a power, and I just wonder if here I am, that's the problem. I don't always have that, but so many of us right now are struggling with events in the world, with events in our own lives, with the COVID crisis, with the Black Lives Matter crisis. We're here for LGBT Pride Month, and one of the things that we were talking about in the Gay Straight Alliance, or in the Gender Support Alliance, we've renamed it lately, the Gender Support Alliance club meeting yesterday, was the fact that Stonewall, we had the anniversary of Stonewall, which was a great uprising 50 years ago that's widely hailed as the beginning of its movement. And it was also called a riot. I mean, there was violence involved, there was kind of mayhem, and yet out of that came something really powerful, including so many powerful words. So I just wondered if there was a way for you to put into words the way that words give you some kind of strength that way, how that feels to you. And it may be an impossible question. It may be that the sunflower poems and the snowflake poems and others are already the answer, but I still wanted to ask it partly as just a way of saying how much I admire it.
Yeah, I think I can talk a little bit about that. So like I was saying, that the poetry and words give me a feeling of control. I've had times where I felt that kind of disembodiment, where I felt like I was kind of, what my mind was like, I had lost control. Not in like, I was kind of looking down at myself or different things. Like I knew I was safe, but at the same time I was in like a crisis and whatnot. So just having that power, simple power, just kind of gives me something back to me when I feel like my mind is just, I lost control or power to it. So yeah, and then I get to choose what words I get to direct, where it goes. That's another thing. I like to create fantasy worlds and allegorical worlds, and that's another way of escape.
Yeah, and in emailing and talking back and forth, you've often mentioned that there's a power in choosing. We choose each word, right? We choose this theme, we choose this image. And that in the act of that choice, there is power, right? Like you have control over that. You have control over that part of that each choice. And making choices is itself empowering, I think.
Yeah.
I hear that coming through in your poetry, and you've kind of taught me that in a nice way. I want to thank you for that. You've been really eloquent about how you write your poetry as well as performing it. So grateful for that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Sam has a question.
Yeah, hi, I'm here. My name is Sam. I'm in Scott's class here. And I just had a question about the symbol of the sunflower and what that's meant to you over time. It's clear it's a symbol of strength. It's a symbol of inspiration to you this time. But I'm kind of curious if you could talk a little bit more about the origins of that and how that has or has not changed over time.
Yeah, so I was introduced to gardening by my aunt, and I really enjoyed it from a young age. And that's also another form of connection to something greater than yourself, just witnessing the flowers growing. And I alluded to that. I feel like they're innocent and just beautiful. And sunflowers are so striking, how some can just stand so tall, and the colors are just so bright. And like I was saying, to put the adjective immortal just kind of amplifies it, everlasting. And I feel like that's inspiring.
Yeah, I'm thinking I have some friends. I have a doctor friend who's in London who's been in the ICUs with the COVID patients, and he's planting seeds lately. He's sending little Instagrams of here's an orange tree that I'm in London. And I was struck that some of my other student friends who were caught up in the protests were posting planting seeds. So I think there's a kind of a planting of a seed with poetry too. Like they're so small. And then they grow, and then they take shape in time too. You're starting to see now your poems are out there in the world. They kind of almost have this life beyond you now, and starting to get attention and win awards, and this can keep happening for you. So thank you for sharing those things with us.
Yeah.
I'm probably thinking we're getting close to 12. Do we have any other questions lined up? If not, I think I'll go and leave in the formal part of this presentation. Okay, we have another Falco question, which is great. And Falco, you may go ahead. Thank you very much.
Are you willing to talk about your tomato harvest that one summer?
Oh, please do.
It's insane.
Okay, I can. It's hard to believe, but I had a lot of heirloom tomato plants growing and took really good care of them and very attentive to them. And so over the course of the season, it's unbelievable. I donated these tomatoes because there are so many of them. I believe it was 200 pounds worth of tomatoes in one growing season. So yeah.
From the backyard.
I mean, the bed was like 10 by 5 feet. I mean, it wasn't like a crazy amount of, I mean, that's a nice sized bed, but it was not like, I don't know, farm land or whatever. Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned, I think it's really powerful that there's this connection to the natural world as well. Like, and it doesn't always, I mean, you can go for a walk in the forest, you can stand at the seaside and watch the waves. Those are the more stereotypical ways. But planting and gardening is another way to connect with Mother Earth, to put your hands on the soil and to connect with the growth that's there. And I think your poetry speaks to that in a beautiful way. All right, let me ask if there's any other questions out. Okay. So I think at least in terms of the formal part of this, if Sophia wants to hang out a little longer, that's up to her. She may have other things as well. But thank you for joining us here for the first presentations in our Pride Month at Foothill College. We have many other activities. You can find them at foothill.edu. Search for Pride Month 2020. We've been a little slow getting that all going. I do want to mention that since this is Pride Month, our committee includes the president of the Gender Support Alliance, who's also the newly elected student body president of Foothill College, Abby Muhar. So Abby's not here right now, but thanks to Abby. Robian Ho is another student who's been extremely, unbelievably organized and inspirational. She, Z, also the artist who made our posters, so their artwork is an amazing gift as well. So I think that it was wonderful to begin the month with poetry, and poetry from a Foothill student who's now spread her wings and flown off. Congratulations on your upcoming graduation. That's an amazing event. And maybe I'll just leave it with that. I think it's a testimony to you, and it shows the power of what words and education can do for us. And thank you for coming back to educate us again. At Foothill College, we'll have you back. This is not Sophia's first reading at Foothill College, and I can pretty much guarantee that it will not be her last. So we're very proud of you. Thank you for being here, Sophia.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me and you all coming. I had a great time. And yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
There you go.